Part 1. My name is Christopher, and I had everything I ever dreamed of in my life. I had a beautiful wife, a fulfilling career, and a home filled with love and warmth. Jessica and I were married for 4 years, and together we built a life that was like a fairy tale. Jessica was my support, my partner, my best friend. She was the kind of woman people gravitate towards, kind-hearted, intelligent, and infinitely patient. I fell in love with her in college, and from the moment I saw her, I knew she was the one. We met in a literature class, and we bonded over our shared love of books and deep conversations. Our relationship developed effortlessly, and soon we became inseparable. We got married in a beautiful ceremony surrounded by friends and family, and every day since then has been like a gift. Our home was our sanctuary, a cozy 2-story house in a quiet neighborhood. It had a white picket fence, a backyard with a beautiful garden that Jessica loved to tend, and a kitchen filled with the aroma of her home-cooked meals. Every evening we sat around the dinner table together, sharing stories about the day, laughing at silly jokes and appreciating the moments that made life special. On Sundays, we had a tradition of making pancakes together, with Jessica insisting on adding extra chocolate chips to the batter. It was such a simple, joyful ritual that made us feel full of life. Jessica was a dedicated teacher, passionate about shaping young minds, while I worked as an architect, designing buildings that would stand the test of time. We were a team that seamlessly combined career and home life. We had a common dream, to travel the world, to experience all the beauty that life has to offer. We had already made several trips: Disneyland, the Grand Canyon, a vacation in a mountain cabin, and there were so many more places we wanted to visit on our list. There was no doubt in my mind that our love was unbreakable. Jessica and I were still stealing moments for ourselves, whether it was date night at our favorite restaurant or just holding hands during an evening walk. We cherished each other, appreciated each other, and never let a day go by without saying, "I love you." Our life was beautiful. It was full of love, laughter, and the kind of happiness that people search for all their lives. I was a happy man and thanked the universe every day for the love I had. We often talked about the future, about maybe starting a family, about growing old together in this house we built with love. Weekends were our favorite time. Saturday mornings meant sleeping in and making breakfast together, and Saturday nights meant quiet, romantic moments. Sometimes Jessica and I would sit on the veranda with a glass of wine, look at the stars and dream about the future. We talked about traveling to Europe, about Paris and Rome, about getting lost in the world outside our small town. The holidays were especially magical. Christmas mornings filled with laughter and the smell of freshly baked cookies, birthdays we celebrated with homemade cakes and balloons, and summer barbecues when our friends and family gathered in our backyard. Life was simple, but perfect. Our family and friends were a big part of our lives. Jessica's parents adored her. They visited us often bringing home-cooked meals and sharing stories late into the night. My parents lived a little farther away, but they were just as loving, always ready to call by video and talk about our lives. Our home was filled with love, not only from the two of us, but also from the extended family that surrounded us. Even our dog Bailey was part of our little happy world. A golden retriever with boundless energy, he ran around the backyard, played fetch with me, and curled up next to Jessica on the couch at night. He was a symbol of our life, joyful, full of love, always ready to bring us happiness. Jessica and I shared everything. We were partners in every sense of the word. From financial decisions to personal dreams, we tackled life's issues together, always respecting each other's opinions and working as a team. We prided ourselves on our ability to communicate, understand, and support each other. Our marriage was built not only on love, but also on trust, loyalty, and friendship. Every night, before going to bed, we would sit together in the living room, discuss the day, and make plans for the future. It was at these moments that I felt the deepest sense of gratitude. I had a wife who loved me, a home filled with warmth, and a life that seemed full. Nothing could shake the foundation we had built together. Nothing could destroy the happiness we had created. At least that's what I believed. Part 2. Life carried on as beautifully as it always had, but there was one noticeable change. Ryan started visiting more often. At first, I didn't think much of it. He was my brother, after all, and he had always been close to Jessica and me. He had recently gone through a rough breakup, and I figured he just needed a little extra family time to keep his mind off things. At first, I welcomed it. It felt good having him around, laughing over old memories and watching games together like we used to. Jessica was always happy to see him too, making sure we had enough food and drinks whenever he came over. It was nice, familiar. But then his visits became more frequent. What was once a once-a-week visit turned into every other day. Sometimes, he would drop by unannounced, claiming he was just in the neighborhood. Other times, he would call Jessica instead of me, asking if she needed anything from the store before heading over. It was small, subtle, but I noticed it. Still, I brushed it off. He was my brother. He was going through a hard time. Of course, we were his safe space. Then, little things started adding up. One evening, I came home from work to find Jessica and Ryan sitting on the couch, laughing about something on her phone. They quickly put it away when I walked in. It was probably nothing, I told myself. Just a coincidence. But I felt it, an odd tightness in my chest. Another time, I walked into the kitchen to grab a drink, and Ryan and Jessica were cooking together. Jessica always cooked alone. She enjoyed it, said it was therapeutic. But there they were, side by side, laughing as they chopped vegetables. Didn't know you were a chef now, Ryan, I joked, trying to push away the strange feeling creeping into my gut. He grinned. Jessica's been showing me a thing or two. It was innocent enough. Harmless. So why did it stick with me? One night, we had Ryan over for dinner, as we often did now. I excused myself to take a call, leaving them in the dining room. When I returned, they were whispering about something, Jessica's hand lightly resting on his wrist as she laughed at something he said. The moment they saw me, they pulled back. It was a natural reaction, right? People just shift when someone else enters a room. Still, I felt it again, that nagging voice in the back of my head whispering that something wasn't quite right. But this was Ryan, my brother. I refused to let my mind go where it wanted to. Then came the little details that, individually, meant nothing but together formed a pattern I tried to ignore. Ryan's cologne lingered in our house long after he left. A text from Jessica popped up on his phone when he left it on the coffee table. Nothing scandalous, just a casual, "see you soon," with a smiley face. But why was she texting him separately when we all had a group chat? Then there were the inside jokes between them, things I wasn't in on. One evening, while we were all watching a movie, Ryan made some offhand comment about an incident at the coffee shop. Jessica laughed, nudging him. "I still can't believe you said that to her." I frowned. "Wait, what happened?" They exchanged glances before Jessica waved it off. "Oh, nothing. Just a funny thing that happened when we grabbed coffee the other day." I forced a smile. "You two went out for coffee?" Ryan shrugged. "Yeah, I was in the area. Figured I'd stop by and see if Jess wanted to grab a drink. It wasn't a big deal. Not really. But I wasn't invited. And I wasn't sure why that bothered me as much as it did. The doubts started creeping in. I hated myself for even having them. This was my wife. This was my brother. They would never betray me. But still, my gut told me something was off. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband, the insecure man who saw things that weren't there. I convinced myself that I was overthinking, that I was reading too much into things because I was exhausted from work or stressed about life. But there were nights when Jessica stayed up later than usual, texting on her phone, smiling at something before locking the screen. There were times when Ryan would show up exactly when I wasn't home, as if he knew my schedule down to the minute. I told myself it was all in my head, that there was nothing to worry about, that it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. And I believed it. Because I had to. Part 3. That day started like any other. I got up, kissed Jessica goodbye, and headed to work. It was supposed to be a long evening at the office, meetings, deadlines, the usual chaos. I told her I'd be back late. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and told me not to work too hard. Just another normal day. But things didn't go as planned. Halfway through my shift, a major system crash forced the entire team to reschedule everything. By some stroke of luck, my long night had been cut short. I packed up my things, eager to get home early, surprise Jessica, maybe even convince her to have a late-night drink with me on the porch like we used to. I pulled into the driveway, the house dark except for the living room light. Jessica wasn't expecting me for hours. She had no reason to think I'd be walking through that door so soon. As I stepped inside, the first thing I noticed was the soft hum of the TV. It wasn't unusual. Jessica often left it on when she was home alone. But then I saw them. There, on the couch, tangled together, half covered by the thin throw blanket we always kept draped over the side. Jessica and Ryan. At first, my brain refused to process what I was seeing. Maybe I was misunderstanding the situation. Maybe this wasn't what it looked like. Maybe. But then Ryan shifted, rolling onto his side, his arms still draped over her bare waist, the curve of her body pressed into him. Her shirt was on the floor. His jeans were unbuttoned. The air smelled of sweat, of sex. My chest tightened. My vision blurred. A rush of nausea hit me like a freight train. Jessica stirred, blinking sleepily, her lips parting into a soft smile, until she saw me. She gasped, bolting upright, pulling the blanket over her chest, as if that could somehow undo what I had just witnessed. Ryan jerked awake at the sudden movement, confusion flashing across his face before his eyes locked onto mine. And then, silence. 3 people. 1 room. A truth that couldn't be denied. Chris, Jessica started, her voice trembling. But I couldn't hear her. I couldn't hear anything except the blood pounding in my ears, the deafening roar of betrayal crashing down on me. My brother. My wife. My stomach twisted in knots. My hands clenched into fists at my sides, but I couldn't move. I was frozen, stuck in the cruelest moment of my life, staring at the 2 people I trusted most as they lay tangled in the wreckage of everything I believed in. Ryan sat up slowly, rubbing a hand down his face. Chris, listen, man. Don't. My voice didn't even sound like my own. It was hollow, dead. Don't you say a word. Jessica was crying now, pulling the blanket tighter around herself, her lips moving but no words coming out. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to break everything in sight. But instead, I laughed. A bitter, humorless laugh that tasted like poison on my tongue. Wow, I muttered, shaking my head. Of all the people in the world, Jessica, my brother. She choked on a sob, reaching for me. Chris, I stepped back, recoiling from her touch like it burned. Because it did. It fucking did. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, looking guilty, ashamed, good. He should be. This isn't what you think, he started, voice cautious. Oh, really? I spat, my rage bubbling to the surface. Because it looks like you fucked my wife on my couch. Jessica sobbed harder, burying her face in her hands. I turned away, unable to look at either of them. I needed to get out of there before I did something I'd regret. Without another word, I grabbed my keys, walked out the door, and slammed it shut behind me. The night air hit me like a slap, cold and cruel. My hands were shaking. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. I stumbled toward my car, gripping the door handle so hard my knuckles turned white. My mind was screaming at me, a million thoughts colliding all at once. How long had this been going on? Was it just tonight? Or had they been sneaking around behind my back for months? Years? Had every moment of my marriage been a lie? I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block out the images that wouldn't stop playing in my head. Jessica's body wrapped around his, the way they had looked so comfortable, so familiar. Bile rose in my throat. I leaned against the car, sucking in deep breaths, trying to steady myself. I couldn't go back inside. Not yet. Maybe not ever. With shaking hands, I unlocked the car, slid into the driver's seat, and started the engine. And then I drove. Away from my home. Away from my wife. Away from the life I thought I had. Because it was all gone now. Part 4. The days after I caught them were a blur of rage, pain, and a hollow emptiness that settled deep in my chest. Jessica and Ryan had shattered my world, and I wasn't about to let them walk away unscathed. I didn't say much that night. I walked out, slamming the door behind me, leaving them scrambling in shock. My mind raced, emotions colliding like a violent storm. But through the chaos in my head, one thing became clear. I was going to destroy everything they had built in the shadows. The first thing I did was gather proof. I wasn't about to go into this blind or risk them twisting the truth. I installed security cameras inside the house the very next day while Jessica was at work. I knew she wouldn't suspect anything. Why would she? She thought I had walked away too broken to fight back. It didn't take long for them to slip up. A few nights later, Ryan came over again, thinking I was working late. This time, I had video proof. Their laughter, their whispers, the way he kissed her in my own living room. It was all captured. I hired a divorce lawyer immediately. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to make sure Jessica lost everything. The house. We would sell it, and I would take my share. Our assets? I'd make sure she got as little as legally possible. The perfect life she had with me? Over. When I finally confronted her, it wasn't with anger. It was with cold, calculated precision. I laid the papers on the dining table, the same table where we had once shared meals, dreams, and laughter. Jessica paled. Chris, please, we need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, I cut her off. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it. She broke down, sobbing, saying it was a mistake, that she loved me, that she didn't mean to hurt me. I didn't care. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by someone who had lied to my face while sleeping with my own brother. Ryan tried to call me, but I ignored him. Instead, I focused on making sure his reputation took the hit it deserved. I sent the footage to a few key people, his boss, his closest friends, even our parents. I wanted everyone to see the man he really was. Our mother cried when she saw it. Our father looked disgusted. They called him immediately, but I didn't stick around to hear what he had to say. Jessica's world crumbled fast. Word spread, and soon enough, her coworkers knew, her friends whispered behind her back, and the people who once admired our marriage saw her for what she truly was, a liar, a cheater, and a fraud. The house went up for sale within weeks. I made sure I got my share, then left her to deal with the fallout. She begged me not to go through with it, pleaded for another chance, but I was done. There was nothing left to save. Ryan lost his job. His boss, disgusted by what he had done, let him go without hesitation. He moved out of state not long after, unable to face the humiliation. Jessica? She was left with nothing but regret. She had to move into a small apartment, far from the comfort of the life we once shared. Friends distanced themselves, unable to look at her the same way. She had spent years building a reputation as the perfect wife, the devoted partner, and now all of it was in ruins. Divorce proceedings were swift. Thanks to the evidence I had gathered, she had no ground to stand on. My lawyer ensured she walked away with barely anything. The life she had enjoyed with me was gone. She fought for the house, for assets, but in the end, she lost. She cried in the courtroom, but I felt nothing. I made sure Ryan's downfall was just as painful. I sent the footage to his boss, who promptly fired him for violating company ethics. Turns out sleeping with your married brother's wife wasn't a great look for a man in his position. His friends turned on him, disgusted by his betrayal. Even our extended family cut him off. Ryan tried to reach out to me one last time, showing up outside my workplace, looking haggard, desperate. "Chris, please, we need to talk." I didn't even spare him a glance. There's nothing left to say. He called after me, but I kept walking. He was nothing to me now. Jessica sent messages, long, rambling apologies, begging for forgiveness, telling me she still loved me. I never replied. But I wasn't done yet. I contacted our mutual friends, letting them see the truth of what had happened. Some cut ties with her immediately. Others, the ones who had any moral compass, confronted her. Her social circle crumbled, leaving her isolated. I made sure she knew exactly what she had lost. The respect of the people around her. The security of the life we had built together. And the love of a man who had once given her everything. And Ryan? He faded into obscurity, a disgraced man who had lost everything for a fleeting betrayal. As I finalized my divorce, I walked through what was once our home one last time. It no longer felt like mine, no longer held the warmth it once did. I felt no sadness as I shut the door behind me for the last time. I was done, and for the first time in months, I felt free. Part 5. Time has passed, and I am free. Divorce finalized. The house sold. My past burned to the ground. I walked away from everything that had once defined me, leaving Jessica and Ryan buried in the wreckage they created. I made sure of that. They got what they deserved, and I made damn sure they felt it. Now, I live in a new city. A fresh start. No familiar faces. No memories lurking around every corner. Just me, on my own terms. The man I used to be died the night I walked in on my wife and my brother, and I have no interest in resurrecting him. He was weak, blind, foolish. He believed in love, in loyalty, and family. I don't believe in those things anymore. I believe in myself. I found success in my career, climbing higher than I ever did before. Without the distractions, without the weight of a lying wife and a backstabbing brother, I could finally focus. I poured my energy into my work, into my own self-worth. My bank account grew. My influence expanded. I became a man people respected, not because I was kind, but because I was ruthless when I needed to be. But happiness? That's different. I smile. I laugh. I enjoy my life. But true happiness? That pure, naive contentment I once had? That's gone. I don't trust easily anymore. I don't let people in. I don't believe in soulmates or forever. People are selfish. People lie. Love is nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion, and I refuse to be its fool again. Jessica tried to reach out again. She left voicemails, sent emails, even wrote me letters, begging for closure, apologizing, saying she still loved me, that she had made a mistake, that she missed me. I never responded. Ryan? He never tried. He knew better. Last I heard, he was working some dead-end job in a town far from here, living in a rundown apartment, a shell of the man he used to be. He lost everything. His career, his friends, his dignity. He deserved worse, but knowing he's rotting away in obscurity is enough for me. Do I regret what I did? Do I regret ruining them? Not for a second. People love to talk about forgiveness, about letting go. But those people have never had the two people they trusted most rip their heart out and spit on it. I sleep just fine at night knowing they'll never recover from what they did. But me? I survived. No, I thrived. I travel now. I see the world. I indulge in everything life has to offer. I drink the finest whiskey, sleep in the most expensive hotels, wake up next to beautiful women whose names I don't bother remembering. Love is a fairy tale, but pleasure? That's real. I take what I want, and I owe no one anything. I've made a name for myself. I walk into rooms, and people notice. I command respect. I'm no longer the man who gave everything to people who threw it away. I built myself into something stronger, something unbreakable. I work harder than ever, pushing myself to limits I never knew existed. The long hours, the ruthless deals, the endless drive to be more than what they left behind, it keeps me from thinking too much. It keeps me from feeling anything too deeply. But sometimes, in the quiet hours of the night, when the city is asleep and the world is still, I think about the past. I think about the man I used to be. The man who believed in forever, who thought he had it all. I hate that man. And maybe, just maybe, I mourn him a little too. But then I remind myself he was weak, and I am not. And that's why I'll never be broken again. The scars remain, but they are just reminders of what I've overcome. I don't believe in closure because there is no such thing when betrayal runs that deep. There is only survival, and I have mastered it. Jessica and Ryan destroyed the man I was, but in doing so, they created something else. Something sharper, colder. I have no regrets. I don't miss them. I don't miss the life I left behind. I only look forward. And yet, some nights, when the world is silent and I am left alone with my thoughts, I wonder, did I really escape? Or did I just build a new kind of prison? I tell myself it doesn't matter. The past is gone. The future is mine to shape. And no one will ever betray me again. But there's an emptiness that success and money can't fill. A space where something real used to be. I live without attachments, without deep connections. It's safer that way, but it's also colder. I tell myself I don't care. That I don't need love, that I don't need trust. But sometimes, I see couples in the street, holding hands, laughing together, and something inside me twists. I push it down. I remind myself that love is a lie. That people will always disappoint you in the end. Yet, on those nights when the whiskey isn't strong enough to drown out my thoughts, I wonder, what if? What if I had walked into a different home that night? What if I had never caught them? Would I still be living in the lie, believing I was happy? Would ignorance have been better than the truth? I shake off those thoughts. The past is a graveyard, and I refuse to dig through its ruins. I tell myself I am better off, that I am untouchable, and I almost believe it. The end.